Let's get real for a minute. We all believe in justice. We think the courts are there to protect the innocent, especially our children. But what happens when that system, the very one designed to be a shield, becomes a sword? I'm talking about the family court system. For too many parents, it's a place where truth gets twisted, where loving mothers and fathers are painted as monsters. They walk into that courtroom believing in fairness, only to have their lives, and the lives of their children, ripped apart by a decision that makes no sense. This isn't just a legal battle. It's a gut-wrenching, soul-crushing war fought behind closed doors, and the casualties are our families. The pain I've seen is unimaginable. It's the look in a mother's eyes. It's the hollow silence in a father's voice. These aren't just stories. They are real-life tragedies happening every single day in this country. People are losing everything they hold dear based on flimsy accusations, biased reports, or a system that's just too broken to see the truth. Let me tell you about Maria. She was a dedicated nurse, a loving mother to her 7-year-old daughter, Sophia. Her life was turned upside down during a contentious divorce. Her ex-husband made a shocking and baseless accusation of neglect. Despite Maria having a mountain of evidence to the contrary, school records, testimonials from teachers, photos of a happy, thriving child, the court sided with her ex. A temporary order was issued, and just like that, Maria lost custody. She went from being a full-time mom to seeing her daughter for only 2 hours a week, with a stranger watching her every move. The system she trusted to see the truth had failed her completely. Then there's David, a hard-working construction manager and father of 2 boys, ages 9 and 11. His ex-wife struggled with addiction, a fact David had documented for years. When he finally filed for sole custody to protect his sons, the tables were turned on him in the most brutal way. His ex-wife's lawyer painted him as a controlling and alienating parent. The court-appointed evaluator seemed to ignore the clear evidence of the mother's instability, and instead focused on David's frustration with the system, labeling it as anger issues. In a stunning decision, the judge granted his ex-wife primary custody, leaving David heartbroken and terrified for his children's safety. For Maria, every supervised visit was a form of torture. Sophia would cry when she had to leave, begging her mommy not to go. "Why can't I come home with you?" she'd ask, a question that shattered Maria's heart every single time. She lost sleep, she lost weight, and she felt like she was losing her mind, all while trying to put on a brave face for the few precious hours she had with her daughter. David faced a similar hell. He would get panicked phone calls from his oldest son, who was often left alone to care for his younger brother. David would report these incidents, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. The court saw his frantic efforts as harassment. He was a father with no power, a protector with his hands tied behind his back. Now, we've talked about the parents, but we have got to talk about the kids. They are the silent victims in all of this. For a child, being suddenly ripped away from a loving parent is a trauma that cuts to the core of their being. It's a profound loss, a tear in the fabric of their world that they can't comprehend. They don't understand legal strategies or court orders. All they understand is that the person who has always been their rock, their safe harbor, is suddenly gone. This creates a deep-seated fear and instability that can have devastating long-term consequences on their emotional and psychological development. It's a wound that doesn't always show on the outside. Think about Maria's daughter, Sophia. She started having nightmares. She began wetting the bed again. Her grades at school, once stellar, began to plummet. Her teachers described her as withdrawn and sad, a ghost of the bubbly, happy girl she used to be. This wasn't just a child adjusting to a new situation, as the court-appointed therapist claimed. This was a child in distress. For David's sons, the impact was just as severe, but it manifested differently. The older boy was forced to grow up too fast. He developed anxiety. The younger became angry and defiant. This was his cry for help. These boys weren't problem children. They were children in a problem situation created by a flawed legal system. The emotional toll is a life sentence for these kids if we don't intervene. It can lead to trust issues, depression, anxiety disorders, a damaged ability to form healthy relationships later in life. The court, in its misguided attempt to solve one problem, often creates a dozen more, leaving a trail of emotional wreckage in its wake. It is inflicting a deep and lasting injury, a scar on their soul that they will carry with them forever unless someone has the courage to step in and make it right. There comes a point where the tears have to stop and the fight has to begin. For parents like Maria and David, that moment is a turning point. It's when despair transforms into defiance. They realize that passively accepting an unjust ruling is not an option when their child's well-being is at stake. This is when they become warriors. Maria started a meticulous journal, documenting every interaction, every broken promise, every tearful phone call from Sophia. She wasn't just writing down her pain, she was building a case. David did the same. He started recording phone calls, where legally permitted, and saved every single text message from his sons. He reached out to teachers, the school counselor, and neighbors for written statements. This process is exhausting. It's a full-time job on top of work while bearing the weight of missing your children. But the journey becomes less lonely when you find allies. Maria found a support group online for parents fighting wrongful custody decisions. Suddenly, she wasn't one person against a giant system. She was part of a chorus of voices, sharing strategies and offering emotional support. They recommended lawyers. Finding the right legal help was crucial. Maria filed a motion for reconsideration. David did the same with witness statements and a binder of evidence. This process is exhausting, but it became a lifeline, a small way to reclaim control. Armed with new evidence and a tenacious lawyer from the group, they filed motions and brought witnesses forward. It became a legal motion, a stack of evidence, a concrete strategy. It's no longer just a feeling, it's tangible action. This is the first step toward taking back their lives and bringing their children home where they belong. The fight is long, and the emotional cost is high, but the price of silence is far, far greater. The fight for justice doesn't stop with individual cases. These parents realized they had to change the system itself. They channeled their pain into purpose. They started writing letters to their state legislators and scheduling meetings, telling their stories to anyone who would listen. They weren't just fighting for their own kids anymore. They were fighting for every child trapped in the same broken system. Their collective action started to make waves. Local news stations picked up their stories. Legislators who had previously ignored them were now forced to pay attention. The parents drafted proposals for new laws that would require more stringent training for judges and evaluators, create better oversight, and make it harder for one parent to make false allegations to gain an advantage. They weren't just complaining, they were providing concrete solutions, demanding accountability and reform. And then, the breakthroughs began to happen. In Maria's case, her new lawyer presented the mountain of evidence she had collected. The judge, faced with undeniable proof, finally reversed the original order. The moment Maria heard the words, "full custody is restored," was pure relief. That evening, she tucked Sophia into her own bed, for good. David's evidence was so compelling the court granted him emergency custody. The reunion was emotional. For these families and many others who fought alongside them, justice finally prevailed. Their journey shows us the power of courage. The courage to face an unjust system and tell your story. The courage to join with others and demand change. These parents are heroes. They are a testament to the fact that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, the power of a parent's love can and will light the way home.